Operator syndrome. We're back here. We're back talking about Steve's experience. We've been leading up to really, I think, these next few episodes, um, talking about one of the big stressful events that Steve experienced um, in his time as a chaplain. And so we'll go ahead and kick that off, Steve.
Yeah. We wanted to throw out a few disclaimers because the event that I'm going to be talking about, we kind of prefaced it at the very end of the last podcast that if you wanted to like Wikipedia this, I mean it's got a whole page on Wikipedia. I'm going to be talking about an event called Extortion 17. It was the largest mass casualty in Operation Enduring Freedom and in naval special warfare history. And with anything like that, there's going to come speculation. I think when people are hurt that bad, you're reaching out for stuff, and I don't want to get into any kind of competing narratives. I just want to say exactly how I saw it at the time, and the bottom line is we lost a lot of people in one helicopter crash. So yeah, so I don't want to entertain any kind of competing narratives or anything like that. I don't know. All I know is the plane went down and a lot of people were hurt and the families. And so I want to focus on the like Herculean efforts that were made to support these families that are suffering beyond, really beyond comprehension. And it's bad when one person die. I mean, it's phenomenally bad. It's like indescribable when you have that many people die all together and it's all intertwined. These families know each other. They have barbecues together. Their kids go to school together. It hurts like on a level that's just kind of uncanny. So that's my disclaimer. I'm just going to stick with what I did. Um, so what happened? As I said, it was the largest mass casualty in Operation Enduring Freedom. What basically happened, and then I'm going to walk through my narrative of me getting to the command and how it all played out. Uh, a Chinook carrying 38 people was shot down in Wardak province, uh, Afghanistan. They were a part of a quick reaction force. It was our National Mission Unit, Naval Special Warfare Development Group, Dev Group for short. It was a troop from that command. Um, there were 17 SEALs on board. There were two Air Force pararescuemen on board, embedded with that unit. There was one combat controller, CCT Air Force. There was one pilot, two crewmen, seven ANS Force personnel, that's Afghan National Security Force people on board, and one interpreter. So those are all of the guys who were killed almost instantly. From what we could tell, it didn't last long at all. It went down and went up in an inferno. So that's what happened. Um, what was going on was a JSOC, Joint Special Operations Command unit of Rangers, 75th Ranger Regiment, had flushed out. They were approaching a target, and they had flushed out a high value target that squirted and with a few other people with him. And they requested a quick reaction force because they had to focus on their objective. And so they scrambled this group from Dev Group to pursue this individual. The accounts that I got from people at the command at the time, because I was curious, like everybody else, like what happened. Like that's the first thing you ask is what happened. Like it was not were not good conditions. It was what we call a high illume night, which means you can see more than we would like because the ball's always in our court as special operators because we've got night vision gear and we've got really high tech platforms. to where we would like it to be hard to see at night. Well, this was like full moon, full stars, and it was one of those deals. So that doesn't help matters anyway. They got shot down, and it was the incredible loss. One thing I wanted to do before I get into how the part I played in all of this, which is kind of a minor part. It's one of the most hurtful experiences I've ever been through in my life. So it's going to be a little personal. I may have a moment because I was, alongside these families, these children, these parents, these grandparents, all of the people. I was there to provide them spiritual comfort as a chaplain. And it was worse than anything I faced, like as a war fighter or going. I've always told people I would go behind enemy lines any day and get shot at, rather than have to knock on a door in my dress blues and deliver the news that your spouse has been killed in combat. So I may have a moment where I just got to take a deep breath, and it's the way it is. It hurt us all, and it hurt me especially. I mean, and I say that I kind of feel guilty saying that. It's like I didn't lose anybody personally. I knew some of these guys, but I'm not the widow or the children or the parents of these folks. God, they're the ones that I think that's what made it so hard, because you just feel so helpless to try to help them. I
Mhm.
mean, there's no consolation when somebody gets killed, and heroes. I mean, these guys, these guys were. I wanted to read their names. I thought that might be a good thing before I get into it, because kind of dedicating it to them. And I told their families that we mentioned this a while back when Patrick was talking about losing brothers in the Rangers. There's something healing about telling their stories, um, remembering them. Nobody wants to be forgotten. And I told the family, every family I ministered to, and there were many, I said, I will never stop telling their story, and I will never stop telling what great heroes these guys were. And I meant it. So I thought I would read their names. I was just listening to a podcast. It was the Sean Ryan show where DJ Shipley, he was there at the command when I was. Of course, I'm in the capacity of a chaplain. He had just gotten through Green Team and was an assaulter assigned to an assault squadron. And he said, these are his words, these are DJ's words about this group that got shot down. It was a troop. I'm not going to get into specifics because I really shouldn't, and I won't. Um, these are SEAL operators. He said there was not a more capable fighting force on the fucking earth than these guys. I mean, they were good, really, really good. And I got that from everybody I talked to, who fellow operators, who were there and knew these guys, and they just went on and on about how capable they were. I think I don't know, that's probably why it's so hard, because it's like there is no, you know they weren't even on the ground to do their thing, and then boom, it's over. It
Mhm.
happens, it's part of warfare, but it's like there's something about that that just really pisses you off.
Mhm.
This I'm reading from a program. This is an unclassified document that was handed out at Virginia Beach at the memorial for all these guys. It was huge. There were people, there were senators there. The president wasn't there for this one, but he was there on a couple of occasions. It was President Obama at the time. Um, President Biden came, or Vice President Biden at the time came. But anyway, I want to read these guys' names just in their honor. Um, so these are the guys killed from the command I was serving at. That's not the air crew and the others, but these are the people I ministered to. So I got to know their families. Lieutenant Commander Jonas Benton Kelsaw, Master Chief Petty Officer Louis James Langlis, Senior Chief Petty Officer Thomas Arthur Ratzliff, Senior Chief Petty Officer Robert James Reeves, Senior Chief Petty Officer Heath Michael Robinson, Senior Chief Petty Officer EOD Craig Michael Caliolani Vickers, Chief Petty Officer Derek Carlisle Benson, Chief Petty Officer Brian Robert Bill, Chief Petty Officer Christopher George Campbell, Chief Petty Officer John Weston Foss, Chief Petty Officer Kevin Arthur Houston, Chief Petty Officer Matthew David Mason, Chief Petty Officer Stephen Matthew Mills, Chief Petty Officer EOD Nicholas Heath Null, Chief Petty Officer John Thomas Tummelson, Chief Petty Officer Aaron Carson Vaughn, Chief Petty Officer Jason Ray Workman, Information Systems Technician Jared William Day, Master at Arms Dog Handler John Dwangdara, and Cryptologic Technician Petty Officer First Class Michael Joseph Strange. A lot of guys, a lot of guys. So
I'll I can't agree more. It's important to, I think, even just saying their name like that. I think it means, I think it means a lot. I think it helps us who are still here, and we like to think it reaches out to them wherever they are now. Um, you and I were talking about this a little bit before we started, with regard to the air crew and the incident in general. If you're interested, we nerd out a little bit on books. We're
yeah,
both readers. I To school myself up a little bit, I happen to read this book here, "The Final Mission of Extortion 17" by Ed Derrick. This is published by the Smithsonian. This guy he writes for the Naval Institute Press, Foreign Policy. So this is not, this is a guy who's going to shoot it straight. Um, but the perspective of the book is about the incident in general. But it speaks a lot to the air crew. So, you know, for the Army buddies who were Army folks who were killed in that event as well.
yeah,
If you're interested in their stories, check out the book. Um, I think it's worth a read. It's a quick read, but it's done pretty well, and it helps honor them. One thing about the SEAL teams, the Ranger, the Special Operations, one thing we do very well is we honor those that pass.
yeah,
Not to say that conventional Army or Reserve and National Guard don't do that, but I think this book was great because it helps tell their story. So,
yeah.
um, so I guess let's get into it. I think the thing that sticks out the most about the timing of this event is how it coincided with your onboarding. So,
Yeah. 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 Can't make it up. So, um, if you have listened to previous episodes where I was talking about my time in the Chaplain Corps, I was working for the Chief of Navy Chaplains at this time. It was 2011, and I was requested as an augmentee to support the command chaplain at Dev Group. He was overworked, and they probably needed 5 chaplains, much less one, or I was the second to help him. Place is just so intense, and there's just so much op tempo going on there, and people are hurting, families are hurting. That's across the whole OE. There was the whole GWAT taxed us out as far as war fighters and everybody really. So I went there. I volunteered. I said, "Yeah, I'll go." Well, I was selected. There is a selection process of sorts, and so I reported on board on August 1st of 2011. It was a Monday, um, and I met the command chaplain. Great guy. We really hit it off. And he kind of took me through the ropes. The check-in process takes a couple days because you got to go to supply, you got to go to all these departments. I didn't even have a phone yet. I mean, okay, so at this particular command, it's one of the national mission units on the Navy side. So everything had to be secured. Even the phones were secure. You had encrypted phones that you were issued from the tech people there at the command. I didn't even have a phone yet. But we're going around checking in, all this. So I check in on Monday. So just like backing up, the helicopter was shot down on Friday, Virginia Beach time. It was actually Saturday in Afghanistan on the 6th, August 6th. I checked in on August 1. Um, to make things even crazier, the command chaplain had needed a break. He needed some R&R. He had just been working, and he really did. He just great guy. He just gave his heart and soul into doing his duties as a chaplain. He really cared about the troops and everybody. And he said, "Hey, Steve, looks like you're hitting it off." I was hitting it off because several of the people I had worked with, I had gone through buds training with a couple, two or three of them, and so it was kind of like I had found my stride. Like I really liked being there, and go. And I was getting ready to go downrange to be with the guys in the field. So I'm checking in, doing my thing, going out for runs, trying to stay in shape, uh, fit into my khakis. And so the command chaplain said, "Well, I need a break. My wife and I just need some time to get away." And I said, "Absolutely, man. I got it. I'll go to the brief." They have department head meetings, and I had to report as the department head representative for the chaplain, the command chaplain. And this is a big level place. It's a lot going on there. I'll just put it that way. So I said, "Yeah, absolutely." So he went to Florida with his wife just to get away. And he said, "Man, you're good to go. You got my cell phone number. Just, I'll keep you in the loop. But hey, easy day, cruise along." And yeah, so I was like, "Just enjoy. I've got it. I'll don't have a worry. If I have a question, I'll talk to you, or I'll text you or ask what to do." And he took me the day before he left. He left like Wednesday morning. Tuesday, he took me to this memorial wall. It's a black granite wall with all of the names of Dev Group operators who'd been killed in combat. And he told me, man, he goes, "Man, there was a rough day when one of the operators was killed." He actually, there's a book about him. His name's Adam Brown. He was an operator, and he was killed tragically, as all KIAs are. And he said, "Man, that was the worst day of my life. I hope you never have to experience anything like that." This one, this one guy. And I was like, "Jesus, I hope I don't either." I mean, that's God. I don't know what to even do. No, you can't. That's one of the problems with such loss, any loss, but especially large scale loss, is you feel so helpless. I mean, you're there to help, but what? There's nothing like just draining the life out of you when something like this happens. So I was like, "Well, Lord willing, that won't ever happen again." Okay. So he goes to Florida, and he was going to come back like on Sunday, I think, with his wife. Well, so Friday afternoon, everybody left the command early. Usually on a Friday, if you're not doing a training scenario, people just cut out at lunchtime, go home, have a great weekend. There's enough work, so everybody just kind of cuts out. So everybody was already home. I was staying on the base, so most of these guys who were at the command were out in Virginia Beach somewhere, living in a normal neighborhood or whatever. But I was staying in the Navy Lodge right there, adjacent. I mean, right there by the gate of this command. And so I was going to go. I remember this like a year. It's like 9/11. You remember exactly everything, because when the world comes crashing down, it's just everything just seems so, I don't know, just right in your face.
Mhm.
So I was going to go for a run and grill a steak on the beach. Going to go for a run on the beach, grill a steak, have a glass of wine, and just have a nice chill evening, watch a movie. So I'm in my room. I hadn't even gone on the run yet, and the phone lights up. This is in the evening. This is, I don't know, 5, 6, something like that, in the PM. And it's Chaplain Bradshaw. And he said, you better get the command. There's a recall going down. And I didn't have my phone yet. So I didn't have my official phone. So I had an unsecured cell phone, just a regular cell phone. So I was like, okay, I'm there. Um, and he goes, maybe just a recall, or they do this just to make sure everybody's ready to roll from time to time. He goes, but just stay in touch, check in with ops and see what's up. So, yep. And I mean, civilian clothes. I mean, everybody's in civilian clothes around there because, mostly it's just operating gear, whatever. So I go rolling in there, and because I'm right there at the gate, the whole command gets recalled immediately. Like everybody that's not deployed downrange is coming back like fast. Uh, but because I was right outside the gate, I was the first person back to the command. Everybody else is zooming in from out in town. And I walked in, I swiped into the talk, and I was like, man, it was weird. Everybody was just like they'd seen a ghost. And I looked over, and nobody was saying anything. It was just, dude. I looked at the executive officer, no, the ops officer, and he came walking right toward me. I was like, I just said, sir, like that, sir. And he goes, not good. And I was like, well, okay. I don't want to, everybody's on eggshells because it's like, you don't know what to do in a situation like that. So I walked into the actual control center where I could see what was going on visually with screens and predator feeds and stuff like that. And I just stood by these two assaulters. Yeah, I think they were intel guy. I don't know. And we were seeing, all I saw this huge inferno. Oh, it's the Chinook burning, like very, very hot. And then I could see people moving around. And I heard one of them say, yeah, those are the Rangers securing the crash site. And then it, then I was just like, I know, there's no way seeing something like that. There's no way anybody survived on that. And I knew I had the basic picture that this was going to be bad. It was like Operation Red Wings in Afghanistan years before, which was the second largest mass casualty in Afghanistan. So at that moment, it was just like time stood still. Um, Time stood still, and yeah, I guess I didn't. So the chaplain who's in Florida, the command chaplain, he's texting me the whole time. Well, back up. I couldn't take a phone into the place where I was
Sure.
standing to talk. Okay.
Sure.
So I came back outside, got back out where I could get a cell reception, and he's blowing up my phone. What's going on? What's going on? Keep me posted. I did not have a secured phone, so all I could say is, and he was one rank above me. I was like, sir, I would get back here as soon as possible, like as soon as flight you could get out of there and get back here. Well, I really felt for him because he was like, and it was like one of those things where I can't get into details, but I said, just watch the news and get back here as fast as you can. All right, that was all I could say.
Mhm.
So this is Friday evening. Because the command wanted to beat the press, we're getting ready to go notify almost 20 families, right? uh, what's called a CACO call, Casualty Assistance Calls Officer, where you go in your dress blues and you knock on the door and you give them the news that their loved one has passed. So the word was put out really quickly. Get your dress blues ready. 05:30, we're rolling out. We're gonna do the deed. Part of that was in um and I think I briefly mentioned this in a past episode. When somebody's been killed in action, you want to be, you want the official story to be the first one that gets to the family, the next of kin. You don't want a bunch of conjecture and rumors to get started. And living, and this was 2011, but still social media, and it was lightning fast. It's going to get out quick what happened. So it was like we had we had, well, overnight, we had overnight to get ready. I mean, nobody's sleeping. We're all just in pure anguish. So getting uniforms ready, getting ready to roll. Now, here's the usually you'd send a chaplain with every Keiko team, right?
Mm-hmm.
The problem there was you had you had to have a top secret SCI clearance just to get in the command. So other than the command chaplain, and there was one other with a top secret clearance, and he was a chaplain at Group 2. He was serving at the regular SEAL teams nearby, but he had a security clearance, and he was a real help too. And he came over, and the command chaplain never made it for the Keiko teams. Well, you'd want to send a chaplain on every Keiko team if possible, but the problem was we couldn't get enough chaplains with security. Most chaplains don't have they don't even have a secret clearance, much less a top secret clearance. So it was just a crazy, so they're like, well, what chaplains are going to go? We only have two. It was me and this other guy, and command chaplain didn't make it back in time because it was so fast. It just happened instantly. And so they said, well, Watkins, you're going with what we think is going to be the most vulnerable person, because she's 6 months pregnant with 3 young children. And her husband was going to retire in a few months, and they were going to go back to Hawaii and get their dream house that they'd always wanted. So there's that. So they said, you're going with that team. And they were people of faith. They were Christian believers, and we also had a medical doctor on our Keiko team with a whole bag. Like, we had to rehearse, like, what if she's 6 months pregnant? Like, when we give her the moment you knock on the door and she sees people in dress blues, if she collapsed, we rehearsed how we were going to catch her to try to not, do any damage, especially to the baby.
Mm-hmm.
If her knees going weak, it's a real thing. It
Yeah.
really happens. Anyway, so we rehearsed, and then I think the eeriest part was, like, the sun hadn't come up yet. That early in the morning, darkness is just, I hate it in some ways, because it's just like there's certain things I don't want to happen when it's dark, right?
Mm-hmm.
Daylight at least provides some sort of comfort. But anyway, the sun, and we had to coordinate these because, all these moms are connected in social media. They're going to be texting in 5 seconds once. So we had to knock on the door at 05:30, like on the countdown, because we knew word was going to spread so fast. And it was, I'll tell you, and that's another thing. Dev Group, I couldn't believe the support they provided and the coordination they provided. It was like, it was amazing. I don't know how they pulled it all off, but when they do something, they do it right.
I mean, it sounds like it sounds like everyone was thinking through
mhm.
the smallest detail.
The smallest detail, and alongside of that, all of the guys were rolling into the command, all the salters, and their wives were with them, and they were going out, and I mean, getting coffee, buying food, getting ready to pick up kids, take them to school. I mean, the scope of the thing was really crazy. But it was like there was only one thing on everybody's mind. That's, how do we comfort these families? We'll sort out the other stuff later. if there's anything to sort out. But what we know now is the mission at hand is to help these folks just survive this damn thing. And it was such a surreal sort of mood around the command. Nobody, obviously, everybody was just walking around like look like you're so confused, like nobody knew how to act because you
Mhm.
don't want to laugh. Fuck,
Mhm.
who's going to do that? You don't. You kind of, there's an insecure part of you that wants to kind of crack a joke, even in combat. Like when shit hits the fan, there's
Right.
a certain amount of humor that can pull you through it. Not this deal. There is no humor at all in the universe,
Right.
and so there's really no comfort. So anyway, we show up, we all roll out, and that I remember going out there. There were 20 Suburbans, one Suburban for each Keiko team,
Mhm.
right? And Keiko teams consisted of the calls officer, one or two of the team members, or somebody who knew that person directly, a chaplain, a medical doctor, somebody who knew somebody. So we had like five. I think there were five of us on my, five or six. I can't exactly remember. And two of the guys, one of the guy, I felt worse for this guy on the team. When I knocked on the door of the woman who was 6 months
Mm.
that was shot down, and he came home for the birth of his daughter.
Mm.
I felt so bad for him, man, because I mean, I don't see how he did it. I don't see how he held it together because he would have been on that bird, no doubt. He would have been on that bird. And one other guy from the troop had a shoulder surgery, had to come home for. That's those guys. I'd like to follow up with them. I don't know I don't know where they are now, but I just felt so bad for those guys. Cause it's almost like, don't you know, Patrick, wouldn't you, I would, if my team, if my platoon, if that had happened in a platoon, I wasn't a dev group as an operator, but if my platoon went down altogether, I would want to be with them. I mean, I don't want to die, but there's a way in which I want to be with them, you know?
Absolutely. Um, it's I I think a lot of people have been in similar situations. Not to that extent, obviously, but everyone, a lot of folks in that line of work, it's mixed feelings, is what it really is. It's oh my god, my
Yeah,
friends are dead, and I should have been there. I
yeah,
could have been there. It could have been me. Um, a part of me is glad that I'm
yeah,
alive.
yeah,
Am I a piece of shit because
yeah,
I'm glad I'm alive?
right.
That I got lucky? And then that turns into the survivor's guilt, which is very real,
Yeah,
and almost everyone experiences that to some extent. Um, and then the ruminating, the thinking about, it's a tough spot for everyone to be in, for sure. I
yeah,
mean, yeah,
yeah. So there's all that going on.
there's a lot going on, no doubt.
There's a
Um,
lot going on.
so we're coming up on time
Yeah,
here.
yeah,
We're obviously gonna pick back up right here, and continue to tell the story. Um, you know, in that moment, I'm assuming you were so focused on. Um, there's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of, but for you specifically, you know, you're kind of in the position where it's sort of expected that you're able to rise above the emotion, I guess, to some extent, to help guide everyone through that moment. Did you feel pressure related to that? Or were you just so focused on the details, on the tactical part of it, that you weren't dealing with that in that moment?
I wasn't worried about the tactical part
Mm.
at that moment because the calls officer was going to read. I think that was the hardest part. When she answered the door at this god awful hour,
Mhm.
he read the official script.
Mm,
He had memorized it. He didn't read it. He had memorized it.
mm,
And he said, you know, his spiel. It's a very formulaic thing.
mhm.
What pressured me the most was having to deal as a spiritual counselor in a time which just makes absolutely no sense.
Right.
I'm going to be looked at to not not in a sense people are looking for a pastor to give answers when there
Right.
are no answers.
Right.
There's no freaking answers.
Right.
It's just a damn tragedy, and that's the end of it. So yeah, that's where my pressure came from. I guess when we pick it up next time, I can talk about how that went in a kind of sterile form. I don't want to
Mhm.
give up too much, but I can tell you what happened. And what I can say is this widow wrote me a letter uh, a year or so after the that horrid event and thanked me so much for being there. Said God had you there at a time when I desperately needed you, and like me, I'm like
Mhm.
feeling so freaking helpless. But boy, for her to have acknowledged that, man, means a lot. So I'll tell that story.
Well, that's where we'll pick it back up. So, thanks for sharing that, and for anyone listening, we'll catch you in the next one. Bye.